So we've gone and added some very basic decals, but what I want to do now is something a little more interesting. We're going to actually start using decals to modify more than just the color property, and to do that we need to actually go into our project settings, into our rendering settings, and we need to enable a feature that's not on by default. What we need to enable are debuffer decals. So I'm going to go to there and I'm going to type in the word decal, and you'll see that we have debuffer decals. Now if I enable this, be aware I'm going to need to restart my editor. So I'm going to do that and then follow along from there. So we're back now, and you'll notice that it's going to seem like everything's broken, but that's okay. What's happening is, unfortunately, when you enable debuffer decals, the engine needs to actually go ahead and recompile every single shader. So it might take a minute or two for it to adjust, but I promise you that the results are going to be worth it. What we're going to be doing from here is actually setting up a decal that modifies more than just color. It modifies either metallic or roughness as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the two Unreal textures that we have here, which are number one. I'm just going to show the two channels. So the red's this, which we've used already. Green is a kind of a fat version of the logo, and blue is the logo itself. Now the reason that I'm doing it this way is so that I can use this green section as kind of like an outline, and the blue is the inside. So we've gone through, and it's gone and rebuilt all of its shaders. What I'm going to need to do now though is I'm going to duplicate basic decal. I'm going to make this new one called advanced decal. I probably could have a better name, but this will do for what we need to have done. Now what I'm going to go to is, if I scroll down here, you can see we have decal blend mode. Now at the moment that's set to translucent, so it purely puts out just that one texture. However, if I want to, I actually have a whole bunch of different options here. In this situation, the one that I actually want to change is color and roughness. So if I go to this and I set up color and roughness, this will now actually let me set a very smooth surface for the ring of one decal map and set up the other as the interior color. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change decal map to be pack 2. Now that's going to be setting up the, if I go to view all, for the time being I'm just going to set the roughness as a default value of 0. And from here what we need to do is I'm going to just demo it in the world so you can see what's going on as we create it. So I've created the decal. Once again I'm going to drop it in as a decal setup, and I'm going to set my advanced material to this. Now at the moment advanced decal is running off of that, and that's okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly show you what this would look like if, instead of running the opacity through this channel, I was to run, it's weird that hadn't updated, but instead of running the opacity through this channel, I was to just use that exclusively on roughness, just so you can see it. Apply. Okay, so we can see this a little bit better now when I set it to black, but you can see that we now have shiny, not shiny, shiny, not shiny, shiny, not shiny, which is a nice little setup. It means that we can kind of use those in different ways. What I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to set up the base color to be equal to the Unreal, whatever Unreal logo color we want to have. I'm then going to, I'm then going to set that up so that we have that on a separate mask param, just in case. So there's going to be an inner layer and an outer layer. So I'm going to rename them accordingly. I'm going to make decal map 1 and decal channel 1. Oops, that's a good trick. And what these are going to do is they're going to set up the basic opacity of the material itself. So I'm going to plug that into here. Now, because I know I want to run off of some reasonably basic channels here, I'm actually going to go ahead and preset this up to use the green channel, because I know I want that to be the main channel. Oh, sorry, not green, blue. So we've got the kind of fatter one as the general opacity. And I'm going to set the roughness for that one to be equal to a lerp, where if it is equal to channel 2, it's going to control roughness of one value versus roughness of another. This will make sense in just a moment. Actually, I can leave this as being between 0 and 1. So, we've got those, we've created them. I'm now going to go ahead and duplicate what we have, and I'm going to rename them. Make sure you rename these before modifying them, otherwise it'll modify the same titled assets, nodes. So we've got channel 1, and I'm going to set this to be using blue. And if I stop preview, what we should see, if I look at it from this point onwards, is we've got channel 1 has that, channel 2 has a separate roughness. So if I go apply and save, this is going to come through here at the moment, but if I look closely, I can see that that outside there has a separate color. Do you see how that's getting kind of a shine to it because the roughness values are different? Let's go on and actually improve that a bit and use this asset here as a way of deciding which color is which. So whatever comes out of this controls decal color 1 and decal color 2. So if I plug that in to here, A and B, now I'm going to just preview this node so I can see it a bit better. If this was to be dropped down to here, we'd now see that the Unreal logo would be black and the outside would be white. So if I apply and drop this into the world, you'll see that we get that. If anything, I actually kind of want the opposite of this though. I want to have a shiny black metallic for the outside and an interior that looks a little bit nicer. So I'm going to swap these values around. I'm going to push you up to be white, and I'm going to dial you back to be black. Which is then going to give me that. So we can then use this as just a basic logo that's kind of in the world. I can have this however I want it to be. Some very basic stuff. But these decals are very, very useful because they let us do some really interesting things. If I go to here and I show you the blend mode, you can see that these are all the parameters that we can change in different ways. Now, the color and normal and roughness are incredibly useful because it means you can use decals to add just a very subtle bump to the surface. So I could make it look like a hatch was hidden away there that was just slightly difficult to see. You know, I can add all sorts of additional lighting details that normally wouldn't be there. So this is very useful, and I strongly recommend messing around with them in your various projects. This was obviously just a very quick approach to it, but it's enough that hopefully you can see where the power of it is. I'm going to just set these up to be a little bit bigger, U to 0.1, and I'm just going to put this up on the top. And that's it for the basics of that project. We've now gone and added various bells and whistles, and we have ourselves a simple game. The final thing that we're going to be doing is working on the user interface and just extending it a little bit further so that we have some nice animations for things as they take place.